Hello, Cyberpunk RED community! Welcome to this tutorial series on running Cyberpunk RED in Foundry Virtual Tabletop for July of 2024. Whether you're a seasoned game master or a first-time user, this guide will help you get everything set up and ready for your Cyberpunk adventure. In this video, we'll be covering how to download, install, and initialize both the Foundry application and the Cyberpunk RED game system. The other videos in this series will cover the basics of the user interface, creating characters, controlling tokens, making combat work, and lastly, my recommended modules for getting started in Foundry. While it's endlessly customizable, there are a dozen or so tweaks brought by these modules that have really elevated my game environment, and I'll take you through what those are and how to use them. The only thing that this series will not cover is net running. The Foundry RED team has put together some native net running automation within the Foundry RED system, but I don't engage with it, preferring the simpler rules tables that I've included within one of my modules instead. Because of this, I'm unfortunately not qualified to speak on how to set up net running in particular. With that said, the only way to begin is by beginning, so without further ado, let's get started. First things first, you're going to need to get your hands on Foundry Virtual Tabletop. You can purchase the license from the official Foundry website, foundryvtt.com, for $50. If $50 is a little steep for your budget, although I feel the system is thoroughly worthwhile even at full price, you can also wait for a sale. Foundry typically has 2 sales a year, which usually drop the system to around $30, one in the summer to celebrate their anniversary, and one in the winter to celebrate the holidays. Only the Game Master needs a copy of Foundry. All of the players will join through a web browser and don't need to download or install Foundry itself to do so. Once you've purchased your license through the Foundry website, you should receive an email with more instructions. Follow them to install Foundry and find your license key, which will be important for hosting your games. As an important note, please make sure to download the latest environment for version 11. At time of writing, Cyberpunk RED has not yet been updated to v12 and won't be for the near future. You won't be able to run the game on that version or later. If that changes, I will post a note at the top of the description. If you intend to pay a hosting provider to host your game online, that is to say, if you don't intend to host the game yourself, you only need access to your license key. You can skip downloading the program to your own computer. Do note, though, that the hosting server's provided environment will also need to be v11, not v12. There should be a reasonably intuitive way to change which Foundry environment you use in your account settings on the hosting provider's website. Speaking of, let's talk about hosting. Once you have Foundry, you'll need a place to host your game so your players can join. While you can host it on your own computer, I recommend using a dedicated hosting provider for better performance and reliability. 2 popular options are The Forge and Foundryserver.com. The Forge offers a user-friendly setup process and automatic updates, making it a great choice for first-time users. Foundryserver provides a much more stripped-down experience with a cheaper overall pricing options. I have experience with both and would recommend either. Both services handle the technical side so you can focus on running your game. While you can host a Foundry environment from your desktop PC or your own dedicated server, I'm not fluent in doing so. I'll drop a link to the official Foundry article with more details on how to install and run your own games if you don't choose to pursue a hosting provider. Good luck. After choosing your hosting provider, you'll just need to follow their instructions to set up your Foundry instance. Generally, this involves logging into your account through the hosting provider's website, entering your Foundry license key somewhere in your user options, and configuring your server settings. If you need detailed instructions, check out the documentation on your chosen provider's website. Once you have Foundry installed or your hosting provider has your server up and running, you can open Foundry. The first thing we're going to do is set an administrative password. This is important because it will stop your players from interacting with the administrative privileges on the tabletop itself. In order to do so, you click the gears in the top right corner here and select administrator password, put something in here. It's that simple. With that done, you can now add the Cyberpunk RED game system. To do so, you'll want to go to the Game Systems tab if you're not there already. Select Install System, give the roster a moment to load, search for Cyberpunk RED. This is the instance that we will be concerning ourselves with. hit install, give it a moment to download and unpack, and it's that simple. Do note that this is also where the add-on modules tab is located, but we won't be interacting with that for the moment. That'll be a topic of a future video. Let's see. We're going to go ahead and hit F5 to refresh here. And you'll note that the game system, after it has been installed, has opened. It's worth noting that the Foundry app is a web-based app. It's basically a fancy internet browser that only runs Foundry. So many internet browser commands like F12 to bring up the console or F5 to refresh a page will work flawlessly. Otherwise, you can always restart the system to refresh it. Once your system is installed, we're going to go ahead and create a new world. Do note that the name you put in here matters for file storage, essentially. Changing it later would cause problems, so make sure to pick a name that you're satisfied with or able to ignore before continuing. I'm just going to put in demo and demo. We do want to select Cyberpunk RED as the game system. The background image can be changed later without issue, as can the join page theme. The next session date can be set at any time from within the game world's options once you've loaded in, as can the world description, but the next session date is not automatically updating, and I personally disregard those features. Once you have this filled out how you like, hit Create World, and it'll pop up. Once you've created the world, you can enter it, and you'll note that there has been a blank Game Master profile created for you. We're going to go ahead and select that. It won't have a password at first, and hit Join Game. We can ignore these dialogues. And the next thing we're going to do is navigate to the Settings tab to create profiles and associate those profiles with player character sheets. In order to do so, we're going to navigate to the game settings in the top right corner here. We're going to go to User Management, and this will open up the User Management menu. On it, you can set passwords, roles, and role permissions. Do note that the password field always has asterisks in it by default, even when the password is actually blank. You'll want to set a password for your GM profile so your players can't access it. Once that's done, click Create Additional Users to begin creating player profiles. Players will be able to modify the appearance of these profiles later, and the names of the characters which belong to them can be associated elsewhere. Right now, you just want to set a name and a permission level. The permission levels are GM, Assistant GM, Trusted Player, and Player. The permissions granted to these roles can be set in the Configure Permissions menu, which can also be accessed from within the world. But as a brief summary, Game Master provides essentially administrative privileges. There is nothing in the world environment that the Game Master profile is not able to do. You can have multiple Game Master profiles per world. The Assistant GMs can make meaningful edits to in-world assets and compendiums and are assumed to own everything in the world, but don't have the same admin rights. Trusted Players can do everything regular players can, plus certain things that might be abusable, like broadcast audio, change their token settings, create notes, create drawings, and look at the file browser, though not upload to it, and so on. And lastly, regular players can interact with their character sheets that are assigned to them, interact with owned tokens on the battle map, and do some other basic functionality. Again, Trusted Players can also do all of this. We're going to make Tommy a Trusted Player, and then we're going to hit Save and Return. I'm just going to ignore that for now. You'll notice that Tommy now has a profile from the drop-down here. We're going to select the Game Master profile. If you set a password, you'll need to put it in. Hit Join Game Session. Once you're back in the Foundry environment, head over to the Actors tab by clicking the head in the top right corner. Click Create Actor. Give the actors the player's name. This can be changed later. Select Character from the drop-down. This sets the type of character sheet that will be used. We'll get to know the character sheet later. For now, you can close it. Right-click the new character and select Configure Ownership. This will bring up a menu with two options. One allows you to determine what all players see, and the other allows you to set permissions on a per-player basis. In the drop-down, you'll find three options. Limited means that non-owner players can see that the character exists and can open the character sheet, but can't interact with it beyond that. Observer means that non-owner players can see what the character's token is able to see, but it's pretty much the same as limited otherwise. And owner means that the player with that role can make changes on the sheet. We're going to set our player as the owner of the sheet, and then make sure that it's properly associated with the sheet otherwise. Once you're done with permissions, we can hit Save Changes, and then head on over to the Players tab in the bottom left corner. Select it to open it. Right-click the player that you want to set the permissions for. Hit User Configuration. Here you'll see several things. First, you can set your player's avatar. To my knowledge, this isn't actively used in any of Foundry RED's default functionality and can safely be ignored. Second, you can set the player color. This is the color of their cursor and will be used to determine the color of certain features in the system, like targeting and pings later, so make sure that it's distinct from all other players. Third, you can select your player's profiles, or pronouns, rather. These will pop up next to the name when they're in there. And fourth, you can associate your player with their character. Players can also change this themselves, but no player will ever be able to select a character that they do not have ownership permissions for. We're going to select Tommy, the name's bolded, and we're going to hit Save. You'll notice that the pronouns and the name of the character sheet have popped up in parentheses and brackets next to the character's name in the corner. They will also pop up in various other places, like when they ping. And that's it! You've successfully downloaded, installed, and initialized Foundry Virtual Tabletop and the Cyberpunk RED game environment. In the next video, we'll explore how character sheets in the interface works for both GMs and players. Thanks for watching!